Greetings, Earthlings. Welcome back to another episode of the Anonymous Investors Podcast. I am Stockman, joined by God. It's been a minute. It's been a while. Happy Monday. In case you don't know what's going on, there's a lot of shit going on in the world as usual, per my usual comment. But anyway, there's been a lot of wacky shit going on. I know that you were telling me offline about Mickey Mouse. That's your boy. You know, you kind of look like Mickey Mouse. Some might say you are Mickey Mouse. You're like the Mickey Mouse of the show. But Mickey Mouse is hitting the public domain because he's been around for what, like 100 years or something like that? Isn't that the copyright law?
Yeah, Mickey Mouse has been around for a while now. But I just wanted to say that if I'm Mickey Mouse, you must be Igor. You know,
Igor? Who the fuck is Igor?
Igor, that little tiger from Winnie the Pooh.
That's Tigger. That's not fucking Igor. What the fuck are you talking about? And his name is Igor, you fuck.
Igor. Anyway, right?
Igor's from Frankenstein. Igor,
In
fetch me the
so
brain.
Disney, right? Frankenstein. Anyway, I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about, but anyway,
Igor's from Frankenstein, bro. Igor, fetch me the brain. You never read Frankenstein by Mary Shelley? You fucking uncultured fuck.
No, I'm not a big Frankenstein guy. I read the book. I don't really
you
watch.
Look like him. You should have read.
I don't really watch cartoons. I'm not really a cartoon guy. I know you tend to be a cartoon guy and everything, but I'm not really a cartoon guy. I'm more of an intellectual in that regard. But anyway, so Mickey Mouse, it's been in the public. It's been a copyright of Disney for a while now. It's one of their most valuable assets, and a lot of their revenue from their theme parks, they sell these Mickey Mouse ears. They sell Mickey Mouse dolls. They have shows for Mickey Mouse Playhouse. All these different revenue streams are coming from this one asset, and Mickey Mouse is probably a big asset on their balance sheet and makes up a lot of their brand value. So Mickey Mouse, it's entering the public domain in 2024, and in 1998, actually, this came up before, where Mickey Mouse was going to come into the public domain, and they actually lobbied the government, and they got this act passed called the Sonny Bono Copyright Term Extension Act. They were spending millions and millions of dollars to lobby the government to get this Copyright Extension Act put into place, and a lot of people called it the Mickey Mouse Protection Act because Disney saw how valuable Mickey Mouse was to their brand and such, and they wanted to protect it. So I'm wondering whether there's going to be another extension on copyright, or what Disney's going to do if they lose this Mickey Mouse asset in 2024, because it's very valuable to the brand.
Yeah, Mickey Mouse is undeniably like super fucking valuable to that brand, right? But the whole thing is that people don't realize this. At some point, a lot of people don't know this, but I think it was like the late 90s or early 2000s. After Steve Jobs was removed from Apple, he went on to create Pixar, and we all love Pixar. We know their movies pretty well. I think it was like they made Monsters, Inc., they made Toy Story, they made so many great fucking Disney films over the years, right? And they're like the main animation studio. And I think it was Bob Iger, who was the former Disney CEO, who took over after what was the guy's name? Michael Eisner. He took over after Michael Eisner, and the whole thing was that in doing so, he basically, he became like the head of Disney, and then he ended up buying out Pixar. And the reason he knew that he should buy out Pixar is that he saw when he was at a parade, when he was working at Disney, that people, like the kids, recognized Toy Story and all these other like Pixar characters more than fucking Mickey Mouse. So I think Mickey Mouse is like obviously like the main, that's like their mascot. That's Mickey Mouse is the fucking Pikachu of Disney, right? So everyone knows who he is. But the whole thing is that for people to say like he's like the main revenue driver, I think is kind of bullshit. It's just that he's the character that's recognized worldwide. But now if you look at how Disney is and like how their parks are set up, they have Disney Sea in Tokyo, they have a Disney World in Beijing, I'm sorry, Shanghai, they have Hong Kong, they have Euro Disney, like they're all over the globe with like parks and resorts and locations. And I think now that like the Pixar films have been translated into different languages, and now they're starting to like recreate a lot of these movies, like The Lion King. They did like the live action one, and they've done all these other films at the same time. and have been slowly releasing them. I think they did like a live action Mulan film. So like there are other characters a part of their pipeline that are so recognizable and people love. So I think that obviously they're going to push to try to extend this copyright thing, but I don't think it's the end of the world because their other IP is ridiculous. Like Toy Story is a ridiculous brand for them. I don't think they're going to make any more Toy Story films, but everyone knows who Buzz and Woody are. Everyone knows who Zurg is. Everyone knows who fucking the little aliens are. Like that in itself is crazy. Monsters Inc. was like a hit. Everyone loved those movies. And then there's like a whole bunch of these other like Pixar films that have done really well that everyone's familiar with. Like The Lion King is another great example. So I think that they're fine. I think they're going to be good because they have so much other IP that they made in the late '90s or like mid '90s that they're going to have full ownership of and not have to worry about it entering the public domain at least for like another 100 years or so. So they're going to be fine. They'll be just fine in my opinion.
So yeah, I would tend to agree with you that Disney's has done a good job of diversifying its revenue stream with all these different characters. I actually saw this study. It was done by this former scientist who was actually hired by Bill Ackman, and they broke down revenue streams by different characters for Disney. And I'm just gonna read off like how much revenue some of these characters have brought in for Disney. So like Mickey Mouse, right? He brought in 5.8 billion. Jessica Rabbit, 1 billion. Iron Man, 400 million. Kylo Ren, 2 billion. Anna and Elsa, 1.5 billion. Captain America, 400 million. Belle, 1 billion. Captain Jack Sparrow, 423 million. Buzz and Woody, 2 billion. That was the Toy Story you're talking about. That's pretty good, 2 billion. Aladdin and Friends, 365 mil. Dory, 1 bill. Wow, I didn't even know they owned that, Dory. Simba and Company, 1.2 billion. That was the Lion King.
Dory is Finding Nemo. So Finding Nemo's huge too. That's another Pixar film, bro. Pixar's literally the fucking moneymaker. That was the best acquisition they've made. I'm telling you.
Wow, they own Wolverine too. Wolverine, 1 billion. Winnie the Pooh. Wow, Winnie the Pooh is actually more than Mickey Mouse. 5.6 billion for Winnie the Pooh. That's a huge franchise.
Yep, everyone knows Winnie the Pooh.
Spider-Man, 2 bill. Snow White, 1.3. And Aurora. I don't know how to pronounce that. It's some Disney princess, 300 mil. Wow. Oh my God. Look at this one. Scrooge McDuck. Holy shit. 6 billion for
Scrooge McDuck's the man. Yeah. Scrooge McDuck's the fucking man, bro. That's me. I'm Scrooge McDuck from DuckTales. But no, yeah, I told you their IP is crazy. They own everything. And they bought Marvel and they own Star Wars now, bro. It's over. They got the media game on lock. Once they bought Marvel, it was a wrap because they pump these movies out like there's no tomorrow. They literally make, if you look at all the box office records, even though they put all this like woke bullshit in there that no one cares about, these movies pull fucking mad money. Like they end up making like 300 or 400 million at the box office like every fucking time they come out. And it's like the same fucking copy paste superhero movie. They're like very I mean, they do a good job with like casting and stuff. I'd give them credit for that. But it's all just like copy paste bullshit, bro. They're on like another Spider-Man series now, like franchise, and like it's the same fucking story with Uncle Ben dying and like whatever, like Spider-Man fucking starts like fighting crime because Uncle Ben gets killed. It's literally the same story. Like they literally just take everything from the comics and they just condense it into like a 2-hour film, and then they make like 400 million. That's literally the game plan. And the animated films obviously are a lot harder to make, and there's a lot more like effort and spending that goes into that. But Pixar, I'm telling you, Pixar literally has an unlock. Like Pixar is the moneymaker for Disney for sure, like for fucking sure.
Yeah, I mean, Disney they own a whole bunch of stuff. They own ESPN. I think they put ESPN at 1 point too. ABC, they own that as well. So like,
yeah, they're gonna spin off ESPN. I heard that's the plan. I think it's Dan Loeb. Is it Dan Loeb from Third Point? He actually bought a big piece in Disney. And I think he's actually, here you go. Hedge fund manager Dan Loeb buys a new stake in Disney, and he's pushing for the entertainment giant to spin off its sports network, ESPN. Yeah, because ESPN doesn't make them any fucking money. They actually lose money on ESPN, which is pretty crazy. But it makes sense though because it's a 24-hour news network, like dedicated to sports. So no one's watching it at like 10 o'clock in the morning or 11 o'clock in the morning unless they skip to work or school. So ESPN doesn't make any money, and they're like very odd because there are certain topics they like can't really talk about on there that kind of have to get covered with sports. Like if you watch First Take, they talk about guys that get suspended for like smoking pot or like doing drugs, right, or whatever, or failing like a steroid uh test like Tatis did, right? Did you see that last week? Fernando Tatis failed his fucking steroid test or whatever.
Yeah, suspended for like 60
Yeah, he
games.
got popped. Yeah, 80. It was like 80 games. He got popped. So he's fucked. He's gonna be banned into next year. But which sucks because the Padres are fucking loaded this year. And last year they were loaded too. But I thought this might have been a good year for them. But he got popped and he's pretty young too. I think he's like 22 or 23. But he's just a dumbass. He didn't need it. You know what I mean? But no, the whole thing is like I think with ESPN, there's like a lot of shit that they can't really talk about with sports because they have to like dance around the fact that they're owned by Disney. So they can't just be like, yeah, this guy got popped for fucking taking steroids, or like this, Josh Gordon got popped for fucking smoking weed, or this guy got a DUI. Like they have to like kind of tone it down, and they have to be more like professional about talking about certain topics, or like they'll just avoid certain like trending topics altogether because again, they're owned by a company that brands itself as like a family network. It's almost kind of like when Twitter was going to get bought out. And this was obviously well before Elon Musk. There were rumors that Twitter was going to get bought out by Disney, and that Bob Iger, who was Jack Dorsey's mentor, was going to buy out Twitter and incorporate it into that Disney brand. But like Twitter has a lot of shit on there that other social networks don't have. And it's more of like whatever. It's like content for like not for kids, right? So, like people are like, well, how would Disney incorporate that into their umbrella? And it's just like, well, they can't, right? Because Twitter, lets people put shit up that you can't put up on Instagram or Facebook or anywhere else. And it's like Disney doesn't want their brand to be associated with that. So that's like the whole thing. That's what I think they're going to do with ESPN. I think they're going to probably spin it off like Dan Loeb says. And that's probably for the best because it really doesn't make any money. Like they have to overpay. They have like 3 or 4 guys that are on there that they like grossly overpay, and they're like the main draws. Like Stephen A. Smith is like the Mickey Mouse of fucking ESPN. Like he does like all the work. He's on like every show, and he's the only one that like pulls views, and he knows how to get people fucking riled up. So he's the main draw. Once they lost Skip Bayless, it became the Stephen A. show, pretty much.
I mean, JJ Redick's pretty good. There were a couple other good newscasters on there, but what I think they should do with ESPN is they should put it on ESPN. They should put it on Disney Plus. They should get rid of that ESPN Plus garbage that nobody pays for, and they should integrate it into the Disney Plus, monthly charge. Because if you look at like Netflix, Hulu, and stuff like that, they don't have really good sports content, and that's what's lacking on some of these monthly streaming services. So if Disney can get a good sports news network onto their streaming platform, that would give them a competitive advantage because a lot of these networks are lacking sports content on their streaming platforms. I don't know why they don't integrate that and get rid of the ESPN Plus.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I don't know if you know this, but Disney actually has a bundle where it's called like the Disney Plus Complete Bundle or whatever. I actually have it because I get it for free with one of my cards. But pretty much you get Disney Plus, Hulu with no ads, and ESPN Plus for like $24 a month or whatever. So it's actually a good deal. So that's kind of what you're referring to. But they did it as a bundle. But I actually do think it would be smart if they're like just incorporate it right into fucking Disney Plus. Like there's no reason to have it as its own like platform. Also, ESPN Plus is kind of like a pain in the ass to fucking navigate. Like I have Roku, and when I go on ESPN Plus, like it's fucking annoying to like sit there and go through everything. But the one thing ESPN does well that I think they need to do more of, and they need to get away from traditional broadcasting, is they do you ever see the 30 for 30s? Those are really fucking good. Or now they're doing a series with they did The Last Dance too. That was on Netflix, but like they had a piece in that with like production, and it aired on ESPN before like Netflix or whatever. And then I would say another big thing is they did that Derek Jeter documentary, like a docu-series. They do a really good job with that. But you have to understand that those films aren't even made by ESPN. they're made by like independent directors or like filmmakers and then kind of bought by ESPN. So like that was the whole thing with 30 for 30 is that it was 30 films by 30 different filmmakers and it was their sort of like documentary style videos that they made, documentary style like films that they made, where it's like then they kind of like sold it to go to ESPN, you know. So I think that's what they need to do, and how they could survive is like make more sports documentaries and focus on shit like that. Like if you go on YouTube and you look up like SB Nation, they make amazing like sports documentary video style things. And I think ESPN could totally do that. Like SB Nation does this series called Collapse, and it's fucking fascinating. It'll be about like they did one with Tiger Woods where they're like they like show the build up in his career, and then it's like how his personal life falls apart. He starts getting injured, and like all this fucking shit happens. And it's amazing how they did that. They did a collapse video on the 98 Chicago Bulls and like what happened after that team broke up and how far they fell. They did one with the Giants after they won the Super Bowl. They did one with the I think they did one with the Mariners, which was pretty cool too, because the Mariners in like the late 90s, early 2000s were ridiculous. They do all these videos, but that's what ESPN's got to do. That's where the money is. You got to go into like making these short or, docu-series style films where they're covering like a team or something like really interesting. That's where the money's going to be. And then you could also sell that content or license it out to Netflix or whoever. And, that, like I was saying, I think that's where the money's going to be for them. I think legacy media is kind of dead. I don't think people want to turn on TV, get inundated with ads, and then sit there and listen to like two idiots argue about, what color suit the guy's wearing before the game because you have no topics to talk about and you're a 24-hour fucking sports network. Like, it's just not going to work.
Right. So, we have the Inflation Reduction Act coming and passing by Mr. Joe Biden. He thinks spending money is reducing inflation, but it's quite the opposite. It actually exacerbates inflation. And he passed this $80 billion bill, right? Apparently to reduce inflation, but it's not going to reduce inflation. And in this bill, he provided the IRS or the Internal Revenue Service with $80 billion in funding. And, he said that this funding is going to allow the agency to serve the taxpayers. Wow. It's going to allow them to serve the taxpayers, which means.
What were they doing before that? Were they weren't serving taxpayers before and now they are going to? Like, what the fuck? What is this guy talking about?
I don't think you can, count an agency that's taking money from you. I don't think you would say that's serving. Usually when you serve somebody, right, you're washing their feet, you're doing it for free, you're at service to them, not you're taking money from that person. That's not being at service. But yeah, he said basically that this infusion of cash, $80 billion, a huge sum of money, is going to allow the IRS to basically enforce their tax laws and their tax codes more efficiently, and it's going to help them basically go after high net worth individuals. We already know this is not true. High net worth individuals, they already get audited every year. Large corporations are already getting audited every year. This is going to basically allow them to have more money to go after the common man and the common folks. And they're still behind. With COVID, they still didn't process like 10 million returns from 2021. They're still working on that. I don't know how they still a year behind. They're such a dysfunctional organization. And, they said basically Janet Yellen came into the scene and she said, oh, this money is going to allow us to basically, form this AI service so that we can have like robocalls. And if people want to call the IRS to ask them questions, I don't know anybody who's calling the IRS to ask them questions about like, the taxes and everything like that. You have to be very uneducated if you don't know how to file out a tax return. I never even heard that before. And they're going to be making these like call centers. That sounds like a total waste of money to me. They basically, forming new technology systems, and they're going to be hiring these more employees, to replace the retiring workers, 50,000 IRS workers. So all this seems like, a whole big waste of money. Doesn't seem like it's going to pay off. They're going to be auditing more people. They're going to be doing this and that. And this is just so, the Democrats are doing this so that they can basically spend more money as they like to do. They just can't stop spending. They're like a woman in a Gucci store, a woman in a Prada store. They have to spend that money, and they just can't stop. So they'll do anything to basically raise more money. If the man they're with doesn't make enough money to get them the next purse, they dump them and they get somebody else. That's what the IRS is doing. They're trying to collect more funds so that they can keep spending their money.
It's such a good analogy, though. It's like honestly pretty factual. But yeah, the thing with the IRS is like they're pretty incompetent, and a lot of people are afraid of them, and rightfully so, because there really are two ways the IRS can go after you. If they claim that there is material underpayment of taxes, they can only go back 7 years. That's the statute of limitations, and that's of 25% or more material underpayment. Now, if they say that and it's 8 years, you're like, oh, well, I'm going to get off. Like, they're not going to come after me. But what they do is then they just go, oh, tax fraud. And the reason why they just throw that around is because there is no statute of limitations. So they could theoretically go back as far as they want. The other thing is they can come up with whatever fucking number they want, because the reality of it is this. Most people, when they're in a situation and they're filing their taxes, do you really think they're going to save 30 years of tax returns? Probably not. So if someone wants to go after you, they could just go back 10 or 15, 20, fucking 30 years, whatever, and they'll go after you and say, in 19 fucking 85, you paid us 10 million and you were supposed to pay us 11. And then they go, well, then you got to add in interest and all this shit. And then they come up with like a $20 million number or whatever the fuck that they say that you owe them. And we see the IRS get like politicized and weaponized against, people who have dissenting opinion from whoever is, running the country, and whatever faction has the majority in Congress and in government. So it happens all the time and it's a dirty game. It's played on both ends of the political spectrum. But yeah, the IRS, getting this money, this 80 billion or whatever, it's really not going to help them, because, people who don't pay taxes, or very wealthy people who pay, very little in taxes, they're smart. They have the best accountants. They have the best understanding of the tax law. They know the Internal Revenue Code inside and out. And if you look at the system and the way it's set up, it's very simple. The way the tax code is set up, it is set up to incentivize you to create a business, to take chances, to start opportunities for people in the form of hiring, in the form of PP&E, that's property, plants, and equipment, in the form of investing into worker productivity, in the terms of investing into the capital markets. And, if you take advantage of that stuff, you end up paying less in taxes. And people have a fucking shit fit when I say that, but that's just what it is. Business owners assume more risk inherently because they're putting their own capital on the line. They're putting their own assets on the line to start a business and to choose to employ people. Employees don't take a risk. Therefore, they get kind of the shit end of the stick. They get taxed at the highest rate. They get taxed at anywhere from 30 to 35% when you combine state and federal taxes. And businesses pay very little, because if you have, some type of flow through entity like an LLC, an S corp, or even like a sole prop or a partnership, or limited partnership, the losses and gains will flow through to the personal returns. So a lot of times the business write-offs that you're entitled to, for being an employer and for taking that chance in opening and operating your business, you get a lot of tax breaks that flow through to your personal return. And these people, they have a shit fit about it, and they go, you didn't pay his fair share. But it's like, this guy also employs 50,000 fucking people. Like Warren Buffett talks about it all the time, about how he pays very little in taxes relative to, like, and that's as a percentage, of course, compared to his secretary. Like, his secretary is taxed at a higher rate than him. Yeah, because all of his money comes from fucking qualified dividends, where he pays long-term capital gains taxes of 20%. So, and then you pay like another 3.8 or 2.8. And that's like the, something like the investment income tax or some bullshit that they came up with a few years back to get more money out of people. But the whole point is, like, yeah, he pays like 24% or whatever, and he lives in fucking Omaha, Nebraska, so the tax rates there aren't bad. Like, they're really cheap. So, it's this whole thing where people, they just keep complaining, but it's like, you need to educate yourself, and you need to look at the system and realize that you're incentivized to invest into American infrastructure, whether that's in the form of creating your own business and employing people, or like I said, investing in capital markets. So, and yeah, no, the IRS having their own little hit squad is cute, but I don't think it's going to change much of anything. I think the biggest offenders of people who don't really pay taxes, it's they're using legal means or they're just putting money offshore, and there's not really anything that the IRS can do because it's outside of their jurisdiction. So it's like tough fucking luck, man. you know. So in terms of spending and the IRS kind of going crazy, yeah, I like your point that you made about buying the Gucci bags. Those Gucci bags, they don't fundraise themselves. You gotta make some money and figure out how to do it.
That's right. You always got to look for funding. But you said about the hit squad. Who's also put on the hit squad? Tornado Cash. They got put on a hit squad by the U.S. Treasury.
Yeah, the
They just got
website
put
got
on the
fucking sniped, right? I heard it got shut down.
yeah, they just got put on the sanctions list. Yeah, the website got sniped, tornado.cash. But they have a Discord server and a Telegram server. And I'm not advising anybody to do this, but they have ways where you can still get on the site, and they give you instructions in the Telegram and the Discord server on what to do. But if you're a U.S. citizen, you should not do that. If you evade sanctions and everything like that, you could be in jail for a very long time, and I think you could even be tried for treason or whatever. You could be killed. I think it might even be a death penalty. I know it's at least 10 years for evading sanctions, but you could be get the death penalty as
Yeah, you
well.
might you might face like a military tribunal if you duck sanctions or something like that, right? Isn't that what it is?
I'm not sure. Is that the case? You face a military tribunal?
You very well might. I know for any type of behavior that they'd classify as like treasonous, you would face a military tribunal and you'd pretty much get sentenced to death. You wouldn't have any due process.
Because I do know a story of that guy. I remember that guy that he went to North Korea, whatever like that,
Yeah, and
and
he was like that Ethereum guy, and
he
he wrote
only
on the
got
board, "No more sanctions" or some shit.
yeah, he's in Australia, but they're trying to get him over here. I don't know what would happen if you ever get him over here. I don't think they ever will get him over here. But he might get charged by treason in the tribunal. But like Tornado Cash, it was basically like this kind of this privacy. It was kind of this like privacy solution, so that basically you can like hide where your funds are coming from. And it was based off of the Ethereum network, and it was like this smart contract where you would enter into this smart contract by depositing your funds or depositing your Ethereum, and then you would get this like note or this key, and by having this key you could deposit the Ethereum from one address and then withdraw the Ethereum from another address. So it was good for crypto thieves or people who was doing hacks, crypto hacks, and it's good overall for people that just want to hide where their money's coming from. It's a good privacy solution. So it's not necessarily you're doing anything illegal or heinous, but it was used by a lot of corrupt individuals, and that's why they decided to put it on this sanction address. But even by putting it on the U.S. sanction history and taking down the website, there's still if you still you could still use it if you really technically wanted to, but you taking Madison's own hand, taking a chance. They can't technically take it down. It's still able to be used, but you can get arrested depending on the jurisdiction that you're in. And they actually arrested the developer of Tornado Cash, Alexi. What was his name? Tornado Cash developer Alexi. He was based in Amsterdam. Um, Hold on, let me just
I
check
didn't
this
know
out
that
real
at
quick.
all. That's crazy. You got
What is
arrested.
what his name was? Alexei Pertsev. He was arrested in Amsterdam, and they basically arrested him for money laundering and basically the fact that he was involved in this Tornado Cash mixing service.
Yeah,
And
I mean, yep. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
no, what were you gonna say? You go.
Oh, I was gonna say, no. Like anything else, it's a tool. He made it so that it could ensure privacy for people and help protect where their money's coming from or where it's going. But of course, it's going to be used as a way of layering drug money or illicitly obtained money, and it just got abused. It just got out of hand. I think we saw some of these crypto hacks, like the big ones that have happened, where we knew the money went in on Tornado Cash, but we couldn't track it on the way out. I think CoffeeZilla did a video where he was talking about one of these big, like maybe it was the Africrypt or something like that. One of those big exchanges that got sniped and people just stole a shitload of money, and the hacker just like ran it right through Tornado Cash, which I mean that's like par for the course for a fucking crypto hacker. But the main thing is, it really is just it's a weird tool because this is the problem with tools like this is that it's in the name of privacy, which inherently is a good thing, but you're going to have bad actors, you're going to have people that abuse systems like that and take advantage of it, and they kind of ruin it for everyone else, because if the main reason for it is for privacy, but then you have people coming in using it as a way to like layer money so that they don't get caught, that's a huge fucking problem. And especially because it's so hard to track when it comes out of there, like hence the name Tornado Cash, right? Like if you put $10 million and you could get increments of $5,000 in transactions going to like however many wallets, like it's very hard to fucking track. It's not like 10 million goes in and 10 million comes out in one clip. You could do increments of 1 million, you could do increments of 5,000, increments of 10,000. Like it's going to be very fucking hard to track.
Yeah, of course, it's almost impossible to track. And the only reason they're putting so much pressure on these services like Tornado Cash and such is because you see North Korea, they stole like $2 billion a year off of crypto tokens. So they really want to go off the North Korea and such. So they're going to start attacking these services. You saw it with Binance. Binance now requires KYC, even the non-US version of Binance, and they lost a shit ton of customers actually once they required KYC. Now we're seeing this with Tornado Cash. We're combating the Lazarus group and other hacking groups. And,
Kraken's going to be another one too. Kraken got in
yeah,
trouble. Iran was using their services to duck sanctions, and now I know Kraken's going to get fucking cracked down on too.
right. Iran was using Kraken as well. But as you said before, it's hard to track. We saw anonymous addresses basically sending parts of their ETH. So how you put money into Tornado Cash and then it mixes it and such. The people with the notes, they would send their ETH to random wallets and random celebrities, and basically by doing so, they got the celebrity's wallet and the other person's wallet sanctioned. So people were just sending it to random addresses to basically protest this sanctioning. And I think Jimmy Fallon's wallet got sanctioned as such. Logan Paul's wallet got sanctioned, and a whole bunch of these celebrities got sanctioned because they received funds from Tornado Cash that were coming into them randomly from these protesters and these protesting accounts. And we see this in Amsterdam where the guy was arrested. There's huge protests on the streets. There's violence going on in Amsterdam and such, and there's a whole bunch of protests in basically supporting this privacy token. And it's basically unheard of what's going on right now is that they're sanctioning. This is the first smart contract on the blockchain that has ever been sanctioned. It's, revolutionary.
Yeah, and it's not like you could use Monero either, because I think the IRS put like a pretty big bounty on Monero for anyone to crack it. And of course, they're not going to say whether or not they got someone to crack it, right? Like the whole thing is that, you don't find out until well after the fact that they do some type of big bust and they get a whole bunch of people. But I remember reading that I think the IRS put a $650,000 bounty on Monero, and they basically said, hey, we'll pay this out to anyone that cracks it. So, I mean, in all likelihood, it probably was cracked already. All these privacy coins and cryptos that kind of pride themselves on obfuscating, because you can't really be like totally anonymous, but you can kind of obfuscate your identity like you can with your IP address or anything else online, or some of your information, encrypt it, right? It's not foolproof, and it's not really like 100% private, but I think that's what I think that Monero was probably cracked, and I don't think that there really is such a thing as like privacy online. I think it's very hard to have that level of privacy given the hardware. There are back doors built into the hardware that you're using, so you could use whatever fucking software you want, and maybe you have an edge in the sense that you could use. You could take certain security measures and certain precautions to stop software from spying on you. But at the end of the day, all of the hardware is like, the government or any type of authoritative figure has backdoor access to all the hardware. So I think either way, they're kind of going to see what you're doing at some point, and they're going to have data that they collect on you.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily sure you could even stop the software, but yeah, this is basically crazy. I look at like computer code and such. That's kind of like, free speech they're going after. If you look at code, that's a way of speech. That's a way you communicate and such. And they're going after this code and they're basically getting rid of it. So the computer scientist code is basically speech.
Yeah, and I
And
mean the code is proprietary too. It's like you said, it's someone's free speech, but it's also someone's, when you really think about code too, and especially someone like me who's I'm a pretty I like to say I'm, programming enthusiast, mostly working with some back end languages in my own free time on personal projects and stuff like that. But it also isn't just a form of free speech, but it's a form of ideas, which is big. It's a form of productivity. It's a form of innovation, and it really also is like an expression and in a way of almost like artistic expression as well. Because I've built like just as an example, I've built systems where you know it could be to mine like a certain type of crypto by running an infinite loop and like a graphical user interface, not to bore anyone with details, but like a graphical user interface software, like backend software I've created to like farm certain coins, and that was one of them. Or I also built like a blackjack simulator, so like that was pretty cool. I've built like a bunch of shit, but the main thing is that like in that sense it is really kind of a form of artistic expression, because you could kind of use it's like a Swiss Army knife in a way. That's what programming languages are, and that's like the software and programs that we create. It's just like it comes down to what I feel like creating, and it is art. Like you could manipulate it in any way you want. You could do a lot of different things with coding. It doesn't have to just be about being productive or um, you know decreasing redundancies, or just being more overall more efficient. Like you could have fun with it. You could build games. Like there's a lot that goes into it. It really is like its own language, and I would agree with you 100% and wholeheartedly when you say that it's definitely a violation of someone's free speech.
yeah, 1000% coding is speech. But if this guy, since this guy got arrested for basically making this program and making this code and facilitating money laundering and such, then how come casinos don't get people who fund casinos? How come they don't get arrested for money laundering? How come basically people that are the founders of banks, how come they don't get arrested for money laundering? How come a gun manufacturer who basically he makes the gun and then someone goes out and does a mass shooting, how come they don't get arrested for facilitating a murder? Why doesn't a person who is basically the founder of a knife company or cutler, why isn't he arrested for facilitating a stabbing? Or why isn't a person who makes a bomb or bomb manufacturer? I don't know any bomb manufacturers' names. How come they're not
Lockheed
arrested for
Martin.
facilitating
Lockheed
terrorism?
Martin makes like drones and shit, and
Right? How come?
jets that fucking bomb people. It happens
How
all the
come?
time. Boeing
How
too.
come Lockheed Martin isn't arrested for facilitating terrorism? So I find this to be awfully off-putting and basically bullshit that they're saying that he was facilitating money laundering. He's just the founder of the code and he's the founder of a smart contract. He didn't facilitate or tell anyone to use the code to break the law. He's not facilitating money laundering. He's not facilitating hacking. He's not facilitating terrorist activities. He's promoting privacy. And this is an awfully, awfully, awfully grandiose overreach by the U.S. government to basically ban this program and ban this code and basically get rid of free speech, because code is free speech, and that this is fucking unheard of, right? This is off-putting. The first smart contract to be banned on the Ethereum network, and 44 ETH addresses were also added to the SDN list, which is the specialty designated national list, where you basically get put on a watch list, a watch program, and they watch everything you're doing. And this is just a great overreach of power. And we see this even in on YouTube and other social media platforms. You just saw Andrew Tate get banned from
Yeah,
Instagram
Facebook
and
and
Facebook.
Instagram. Yeah. Yep.
And there's a lot of overreach these companies and government are doing, and people are sitting by. And COVID was that virus was an experiment, and they saw that people were complacent, and now they're taking it further and further and further. and
Yeah,
they're shitting on
and
the people. They basically taking
Tate's thing,
great shit on the person's side.
and Tate's thing is so weird too because he said some controversial shit a couple years ago or whatever, but the stuff he's been putting up lately is like very tame. It's not anything crazy. I think the craziest thing in quotes, right, that he did was he said something to the effect of like women are bad drivers and like people were trying to cancel him. And his point wasn't even that women are horrific drivers. It was just like men are better drivers. So then this one guy debated him on this topic and he approached it from the perspective of like, well, if you actually look at insurance premiums, women pay less than men. So he's like, insurance companies wouldn't be able to survive and they wouldn't, automotive insurance companies like Allstate or Geico or whatever wouldn't be able to survive if women got into all these accidents and they paid like a smaller amount in insurance premiums. But Tate's argument wasn't that women are safer drivers. His argument was that men are better drivers, which I think is definitely true because if you look at NASCAR, there were only like two women drivers in the last like 5 years, and they both weren't really that great, and they both didn't win any races. And then if you also look at like Formula One, like I don't know a single chick that's a Formula One driver. Um, and you look at like racing at like the highest stakes, like even motocross or any type of X game activity or whatever, like there aren't really any chicks that are good at that. So I don't know. I think he had a valid point. He just meant in terms of skill, like just sheer skill, like how many women are like actually skilled at like fucking driving or whatever, and they're not in like that top 5, top 10. So I think he had a valid point. Like if you think of the top 10 like drivers in the world, Formula One, NASCAR, whatever, there really aren't any women on that list. Maybe there's like one in like the top 50 or something, or like top 25 maybe, but that's kind of where the line is. And for that him to get banned on those is ridiculous. And I know now there's like a big push to ban him on TikTok, which is where he originally blew up. But I don't know if TikTok will capitulate. I think TikTok's very weird. We're on there, but it's just like it's very odd because there are certain things that you could kind of get away with, and there's certain things you can't. So TikTok doesn't like apparently people that like will post videos of them smoking cigarettes or whatever will get them banned on TikTok because China doesn't endorse that, or any type of like vice, they like ban you. It's like very weird. But yeah, we had trouble with the TikTok. Remember, I was telling you this offline. It was they took down our fucking Bill Gates video, which was bullshit. I think I titled it like "We Love Bill Gates" or something, and that was one of the clips we put up on the main channel. But that's still on YouTube. Obviously, we love, the title suggests, we love Bill Gates. There's obviously no sarcasm whatsoever in that. We love him. He's our Lord and
Right.
Savior. And for TikTok to not understand that, I think is a little tone deaf. To insinuate that we were being sarcastic or we were being hateful or presenting any information about Bill Gates in a derogatory manner, I think is is very ignorant and is very maligned. I'll put
Right.
it
I
that
love
way.
Bill Gates. I love everything he's doing, but he's a good guy, and I love TikTok. I have nothing bad to say about TikTok. But yeah, you brought
Yeah,
up a good
TikTok
point.
is great.
You brought up a good point about the words better and safe, and I think this is the key thing, that better and safe aren't the same thing. So like men, they might be better drivers, but they're not safer since they drive faster and than women. So if basically you have to take, when you do an experiment, you have to take the same variables. You have to put men at the same speed as women at the same speed. Women on average, they drive slower than men. Thus, that's why they have lower risk premiums on cars. And that was also a good point about what you brought up about Formula One, and how most of the people who drive Formula One are men. But you have to look at whether or not it's because men are basically more interested in those kind of activities than women. There might be a bigger pool of people that want to be race car drivers that are men, and they might be more interested in that activity. That's why you might see that men are better at this activity than women. But usually, when you look at it, right, men on the extremes of things are better, but women on average are better. But if you look at the extremes, men are worse at the specific activity than the average woman, and they're like greater than women on the specific activity. They tend to go to the extremes, so women goes to the average.
Yeah, I mean that's 100. I 100% agree with you there. I think that like inherently, like women are better than men at like caring for children or caring for elderly people or being more empathetic or patience. I think patience is a big thing too. Like I think guys aren't really as patient as women are, and you know women are smart. Like they play the fucking long game with a lot of shit. But yeah, they're just inherent like traits, and that of course happens through the course of human evolution. And for people to kind of like push back, and we kind of see this a little bit nowadays too. Like some people will push back and try to fight that, but like if you're stuck on an island, everyone kind of reverts to like whatever their like role would have been, and that's just like an evolutionary thing. Like the men would go hunting, or they'd like try to like get food, and the women would be kind of like scavenging or be like like gatherers. So it's like that whole hunter gatherer dynamic. But that's just what people would revert to in a nature setting, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that people try to fight that, and there's like a whole bunch of women that think that they're like gonna get away, that they're gonna be like overtly and like annoyingly masculine to compensate because they feel inferior to men, which is very silly because everyone's equal. So I just find that amusing.
Well, people like you, they might be able to like out alpha you, but they're not gonna out alpha me. I'm the head honcho.
Yeah,
You can't out
I don't
alpha
know
me.
about that. I don't know about that. I'm
I'm
the
the
top
king of
striker.
alpha.
I'm the type
I'm the
striker.
alpha. I am the alpha of Mr.
I'm,
Alpha.
I'm the Sigma male. You know the Sigma male? That's me. Sigma male doesn't give a fuck.
You're the beta,
No,
right?
you're the Omega.
You're not
You're
even
not even the beta. You're the Omega, and I'm the
you're not
Sigma
even a
male.
piece of scum on the bottom of my shoe. All right,
L nerd, L nerd. You're the L nerd.
L nerd. What was going on with this credit union Experian or Equifax?
Yeah, it's
You
Equifax. Yeah, so dude, this was nuts. So I was telling you a little bit about this offline, but they fucking gave the wrong credit score out to millions of people looking to buy homes, cars, or deal with credit card loans. And Equifax is like fucked up in the past. We all know that they had that big hack that they suffered years ago, and it's just now we're getting to the point where it's like, are we going to continue to trust these like private credit bureaus? So there's three of them. A lot of people don't know this if you're not, privy to credit cards or whatever. So there's Equifax, there's TransUnion, and then there's Experian. And basically the way it works is like these three companies, they like have their own proprietary algorithms that like essentially assign you a credit score. And the credit score is then used for, getting a mortgage, like to run your credit, or getting a car or whatever. Anything that you're buying where you don't have the full amount in cash, you would need to have a credit report ran. Even in the event of like getting an apartment, right? Because like if I'm a landlord or you're a landlord, like you want to make sure that the guy that you're going to rent to is good for the money and like he's got a good track record of paying off debt or paying off any sort of like accrued liabilities over any fixed period of time. So that's the whole point of these credit bureaus is to like kind of assign everyone a credit score, and that determines how credit worthy you are. But the biggest problem is that they all suffer these fucking hacks all the time or data leaks. And now in this case, it's like I just said, Equifax giving people the wrong credit scores. So now I can imagine, right, how many people are affected. Well, we just established that they gave millions of people who are looking to buy homes, get cars, know, take on other different types of credit. They gave out the wrong scores. So is it the wrong scores where it's negatively penalizing people, which would mean that lending actually is better off? Or is it like a guy has a 640 credit score and you have him down at 800 and now he's able to buy a house that he really can't afford, you know? And it's like, where do we like, is it that they had these scores that they made so far underreported, which actually, like I said, would be a good thing because even if the guy could afford to get, if his score is going to be used and it's going to be used to help him get a house, if his score is reported as less, that means that the terms of the mortgage aren't necessarily favorable for him, but that he'll actually, won't qualify for a house that's like at like that fair rate based on his credit score. but then the other side of it is, what if it's like I said, a guy with a 640 who has like an 800 score, like a fucking an 810 score, and now he's able to get some baller house, even though he's not obviously good for it because he's got a shit credit score. So it's going to be interesting to see. But my main question to you is like, at what point do we kind of just get rid of these private credit bureaus, because they've been having nothing but problems with data leaks and managing information and even just assigning these credit scores. They keep changing the fucking criteria too. They had the FICO 8 scoring model for the longest time. Now I think they've moved away from that. And I don't know. I've heard, at least with the FICO 8, when they used that, I actually cracked I found someone who cracked the algorithm, and it was very interesting. People like reverse engineered it and figured out how to get like a perfect score, and it's very interesting. I'll just leave it at that. But at what point do we get rid of these credit bureaus? Is pretty much my question to you.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I was watching this interview with this guy, Adam Bastamonte. I don't know if you know who he is. He's basically, they say he's this former CIA agent, and he basically gave his synopsis or whatever. What he was talking about was that all data basically is susceptible to being hacked, or is it's out there when all your data is basically not protected. And he was an advocate of after 9/11, when they came out with the Patriot Act. He basically argued for the Patriot Act, and he basically explained to people how once you sign up for something, or once you go online, your data's on the computer, you should knowingly know that your data is out there. So I think your credit data is obviously it's going to get exposed. It's going to be hacked, just like every other part of your data. But these private companies, they do have a responsibility to try and protect your data, but I think it's kind of like a lost cause. I don't think they ever going to be able to truly protect the data in that regard. But credit scores are they're used for like a lot of weird things. I know we were talking about car insurance earlier. Car insurance companies, they some of them, they use your credit score to tell you your rate. You might not think like, oh, what does your credit score have to do with your insurance rate? But they say that people with lower credit scores are actually more dangerous drivers. I don't know how they came to that conclusion, but they did like studies and such where people with low credit scores are actually more dangerous drivers, get into more accidents and have more claims than those with higher credit scores. I guess it has to do with like some sort of like, you have discipline in one regard, then you might have discipline in another regard. But
That makes
yeah.
sense. Yeah, that makes sense. They have a lot of those actuarial science guys looking at shit like that and looking at data and trying to draw the parallels. So I'm sure there's some validity to that. If you have a shittier credit score, you're like a bad driver. I think that's definitely true. There's also in finance, like for anyone that goes to work in finance, there's also something called like the Fair Credit Reporting Act, where like if you go to work in any job in finance, buy side, sell side, you go to work at any type of like large institution that manages like over $1 trillion, the Fair Credit Reporting Act, you have to like disclose. They run your credit and they want to see if you're like delinquent with your credit. And the whole rationale is like, if you can't afford to pay your debts, if you have any, then why would they hire you? You're more at risk of like stealing money from clients, or like doing something shady within the company and like pilfering money, because you have like, if you have like $200,000 or $300,000 in debt or whatever, and then you go to work at like a finance company, that's they know that you're like desperate to pay that off, and if the salary they're going to pay you isn't obviously enough to pay that off, they might not hire you because of that. They kind of could see you as like a red flag, or like a threat to potentially break laws and to steal money from clients, or whatever the case may be, or from the company itself.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I know some states, like, you're not allowed to use credit scores when it comes to like insurance and hiring and such. Like, like I know like California, Hawaii, Oregon, and a few others, like you're not allowed to use it. But like some states that actually allow you to use credit scores for like other things besides financial matters and applying for credit and such. So like your credit score actually has a larger impact than you think. It's not only like what mortgage you qualify for or what credit cards you can open. It has there's some things where you might think, oh, your credit score doesn't matter or it doesn't apply to this, but like these actuaries are actually applying your credit scores to things that at face value might not seem the same.
Yeah. So what were you telling me about China? I'm curious about that. You were saying something with these Chinese factories, right?
Oh my goodness, you got to hear this. What was going on in China? So recently in China, we saw with the basically they have these scorching temperatures, and it's getting very hot in the Yangtze River region of China, and it's like 104 degrees over there, and they basically have these droughts, and it's disrupting crop growth, the livestock, and they basically telling these factories in this region to shut down and to basically alleviate pressure on the power grid, which I find like stupid. Why are they shutting down factories and which is the lifeline of the economy and producing like a lot of growth and such for the GDP? Why are they doing that when they could just tell people to shut off their air conditioners? They tell these people, right? These 94 million people that live in the region, we have a temporary bill, right? No air conditioning, right? And let's leave the factories open and let's shut down the air conditioning. They chose to shut down the factories instead of telling these assholes, right, that are putting pressure on the power grid by turning on their air conditioning to shut off their air conditioning. Totally, 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 totally uncalled for. And we see reservoir levels are basically declining. Air conditioning is spiking, as I said. Like these people got to shut down their air conditioning, and it's just stupid. And these people they're causing a massive disruption to the economy because they want to run their air conditioning, and they're causing the industry to basically take on a lot of excess energy demand.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big problem for a lot of these developing countries and like the US more specifically, um, Canada, China, and then like a lot of these European countries is that as we gradually embrace more technology and as the world becomes more fully developed and really even talking about undeveloped parts of the world, I think there's going to be a massive sort of constraint on the electrical grid because everything has to fucking be plugged in or everything runs on some type of battery that has to be charged or whatever the case may be. And especially within the next 10 or 15 years, because now we're going to start to see mandates towards moving to electric cars. So it's only going to get worse. And the electrical grid, especially in the United States, was designed at a time where, people had like fucking 3 light bulbs in their house and that was it. So there wasn't really, AC or some of these other modern like innovations like televisions and radios and whatever the case may be, microwaves. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But the electrical components that go into building and assembling these like pieces of hardware or machinery or appliances, like it just has to become more efficient. Like we're hitting a point where like we talk about this a lot with Tesla, but like the lithium ion cell battery costs, like that has to come down dramatically, and also like I said, consumption needs to be a lot less because we're getting to a point where now everyone's going to have, cars are pretty affordable. Like if you think about cars when cars first came out, maybe like one person, for a family, you had like one car, or maybe like, you know, on a block, you might have had a few people with cars, and now it's like everyone has like 3 or 4 cars. Well, it's like kind of the same rationale with technology. It's like everyone has TVs, everyone has monitors, everyone has computers, everyone has game consoles, everyone has iPhones, and all this other shit that has to get plugged in. So the constraint on power grids is going to be nuts. And yeah, China is dealing with the same thing. They clearly have a massive their population's actually declining, but like they are at a point now where there are so many fucking people and everyone's plugging their shit in that it's going to be nuts. Like I don't know how they're going to manage it. It seems kind of crazy, but again, but China, like we said before, they don't really innovate that much. They just kind of steal whatever America does. So it really
Well,
comes
you
down
want to
to
hear
America to
the answer
create
to
some type
that?
of power consumption system.
The answer to that is right. Instead of China, right, building these houses and forming these ghost towns, because China has 65 million empty towns because they're overbuilding homes, they're overbuilding construction, and they do that to basically prop up their GDP. They have more homes than citizens in the country, and they form these ghost towns with basically 65 million empty homes lying. Instead of trying to prop up the GDP by doing construction and bailing out these companies, because when a construction company fails, that would have to be basically taken out of the GDP and it would negatively reverse the GDP of China. Instead of doing that, why don't you focus on improving the infrastructure, improving the electrical grid, and actually innovating instead of trying to prop up GDP through these bullshit means.
I 100% agree. And on that note, thanks for sticking around. Thanks for tuning in. Oh, also, I want to tell you this. This is something cool that I'll end on. This is so dope. So one of my friends sent me a snap the other day, and he was playing fucking pickleball. And I was like, let's fucking go. Because I know we've been talking about pickleball a little bit here and there. So, like, on an actual court, like, obviously, whatever, it's a tennis court. But it was like a tennis court that was gridded up on both sides of the net into, like, little parcels of two. So it was like two on each side divided up, and he was playing pickleball. So that's pretty cool. So that's a major callback for if you know, you know. So, but thanks for tuning in. It's been a fun time. It's been a fun ride. God, you got any parting words of wisdom for the folks before we wrap it up?
Don't tickle your ball. Don't play with your balls. Right? Play pickleball.
Ah, you almost had it. You almost had it. Almost. Don't play with your pickle. Don't play with your balls. Don't play with your pickle. Don't play with your balls. Play pickleball. That's what it is.
That's the slogan of the day. All right. Thanks, people.
That's been the slogan of the day for like 4 times. Yeah. But you know what? It's words to live by, man. It is. You got to think with your head. You can't be thinking with the other head. You got to think with your main head. Anyway, peace out.